Hello everyone, my name is Chris Top and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Figuring Out Fatherhood, Chris Unplugged. Now the topic I actually want to talk about today is inconsistent dads. Initially I was going to film an episode about inconsistent dads versus absent dads, and this was triggered by a question I was asked in the fatherhood group chat that I'm in, and they asked what's worse, an inconsistent dad or an absent dad, and I thought it would be good to film this and to actually share it with you guys. It's also an important teachable and shareable moment in my opinion. The first thing I think is important that we do is we establish what an inconsistent parent is. I know I said that previously, but actually it's going to be inconsistent parents because both the mother and father are both capable of being inconsistent. An unreliable parent, in the words of Louisa Dickinson, inconsistent parents, they do not show up, or they show up consistently late. They leave your child standing at the window wondering where they are and what if, and the child is wondering if they're coming. The child is asking you how much longer are they going to be, and you're sitting there wondering yourself that you're not sure when this parent is going to turn up. In addition, they also promise to call the child on Skype. The phone call doesn't happen, they promise the child all sorts of things, and essentially they do not show up for their child. Unreliable parents, more often than not, they make co-parenting borderline impossible, because co-parenting in itself is difficult enough as it is. Now imagine you're trying to do with an unreliable parent. It's like, where do you even start? And that's the whole purpose of this episode. Now that we've defined what an inconsistent / unreliable parent is, we're going to do a deep dive into the effects an unreliable parent has on a child's development and the effects they have as the child grows up and becomes an adult. Actually, before we get into it, I think it's also important to note, and this is kind of sad in my opinion, that unreliable parents, inconsistent parents, they seem completely oblivious to the impacts their actions have on the child's development. They're oblivious, or they actually do not care. Going into the effects of an unreliable parent and inconsistent parenthood, the first thing to note is the child's development. Children's first steps towards understanding their self-worth is based on the relationship they have with their parents. Inconsistent and unreliable parents end up leaving the child questioning their self-worth, questioning if they're worthy of love, questioning what they've done to have an unreliable parent who's not invested in them. Unreliable parents can leave children emotionally wounded as well. It makes it difficult for children to form strong bonds with people because they sort of get used to the fact that one of their first original relationships is on the basis of being unreliable. Inconsistency tends to lead to the belief that people can't be trusted, and what ends up happening is the child grows up believing that people can't be trusted, and it takes into adulthood with them, and this impacts their emotional development as well as making it difficult to form secure attachments, which impacts the actual adult relationships. Children with an unreliable parent, especially when the impacts are left unaddressed, tend to grow up anxiously attached. They're hungry for emotional connections, but they're always waiting for the shoe to actually just fall off because they tend to expect that people around them are unreliable. Plus, it also makes the job of the parent who's consistent, it makes the job a lot harder. Now, to add to the long list of things they have to do for their child, they also need to negate the impacts of the actions of the unreliable parent. Following on from the effects unreliable parenting has on the child, I also think it's important that we cover some tips that will help you to combat the effects of an unreliable parent. The first thing you need to do when you're trying to address the impacts of an unreliable parent is to communicate with the unreliable parent. Yes, I know it's difficult. Yes, I know you don't want to have anything to do with anyone who's inconsistent in your child's life. More importantly, I know you don't want to have anything to do with someone who's inconsistent in their own child's life. But one of the first things you need to do is actually to address this inconsistency with the parents. You need to communicate to them the importance of them being reliable and being consistent in their child's life. But the bigger challenge of that is, in some instances, based on potentially your relationships, your experience as well, or people you've seen around you, you may feel it's better to actually alienate the parents from the child's life. But I promise you, this is actually not the solution you think it is. You may think that your child is better off without them, but it's not about what you feel or what you think. It's more about what's important for your child and what your child needs for their development. Remind the parent that the connection, the reliability, the relationship they have with their child is actually very, very important. As insane as it sounds, some parents out there actually underestimate the importance of the relationship they have with their child. They don't see their unreliability as an actual issue. They see it as just a thing that happens that people get over. Another sad part is they may actually see you reaching out to them, asking them for consistency as you trying to get closer to them or trying to spend more time with them. And yes, I know it sounds insane, but please, 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 just remain calm, remain respectful. The other parents, believe me, if they're willing to be inconsistent in their own child's life, they are very, very willing to antagonize you. And they will try to antagonize you, to be honest. They may try to weaponize you asking for consistency as a reason why they should have custody of the child, or a reason why you can't deal without them. And to be honest, I know it's unfair that you have to put up with what's being said to you. It's unfair that you have to listen to the other parents spew nonsense about how you need them or how you can't do without them. But unfortunately, it's not about you. Once again, it's about the child and their needs. The next tip to dealing with the impacts of an inconsistent parent is to communicate with the child. You need to talk to your child about their feelings. You need to remind them that their feelings are valid, and how they feel about this inconsistent parent is very, very much valid. They may not understand that they're not the reason why the other parent is inconsistent. So it's important that you communicate that to them and let them know that how they feel is valid and it's got nothing to do with them. I know some people may see this as an opportunity to badmouth the other parents, especially if there's feelings of discord or dislike for whatever reason, but it's important you do not badmouth the other parent. You need to, it may sound like a cop-out, but you just sort of need to let the child know that the parent's inconsistent due to personal issues that they're dealing with, which isn't necessarily a lie, to be honest, but it's sort of like an easy answer. Acknowledge how the other parents' actions make them feel. Make sure they feel loved. Reinforce the fact that they have people around them who love them and are willing to invest time into them. What you shouldn't do is express your anger, your frustration to the child about the other parents. Remember that the other parent is actually, as much as you hate to admit it, 50% of your child. If you badmouth the other parent to the child, they're going to feel bad about half of themselves. Think of it as a teachable moment, actually. This is a moment where you're able to communicate to your child that other people's actions aren't within your control, but what they can control is their thoughts and their own actions. Also remember that your child isn't a crutch for you to lean on to get your frustrations off your chest. It's well documented that children long for a parent who's not present. And yes, it will be hurtful to you, the parent who's consistent, who puts in 100%. Yes, I know it's unfair, but once again, it's not about you and how you feel, it's about what your child needs. Remember, as the child grows older, they're going to form a more balanced view of their parents. They're going to realize that, you know what, this parent was there for me in my first football game, this parent was there for me in my first date, was there for me when I was ill, took care of me when I was ill, made sure I was fed all the time. And if the other parent is a bad parent, it's only a matter of time before the child grows up and realizes the parent was a bad parent. Also, they'll make them feel bad for longing for an absent parent. They'll make them feel guilty for it. They'll make them feel like they shouldn't be doing that because it is very, very much normal. If the child chooses to adore the other parent, let them. You may see the other parent as a mistake, but you also need to remember that out of this mistake, as you may or may not have labeled it, came this beautiful, beautiful blessing. Another tip towards negating the impacts of an inconsistent parent is to keep your child occupied. Always have a backup plan. Don't let them sit and stew in their feelings, in their disappointment, in their frustration. Do activities that will make them feel good about themselves, because in that moment where they've been disappointed and let down, they may start to act out. They may start to feel neglected. In that moment, you need to ensure that they're occupied, they're loving themselves, and they realize that the problem isn't them. When you allow a child to spend time upset in their disappointment or their frustrations, they tend to act out, and they may do things that we may label as attention seeking, but really they're only acting out based on the actions of this inconsistent parent. Another piece of advice when dealing with the effects of an inconsistent parent is to not force your child to speak on their feelings or to speak on the inconsistent parent if they're not ready to. Instead, you need to reinforce the fact that you are there to speak to them, you're there to listen when they're ready to speak on their feelings. Sometimes they may not even know how they're feeling, but due to you expecting them to be upset, expecting them to be frustrated, you may want to zero in on that and talk about that and that alone, but you need to let them process their feelings in their own time and be there with them to hold their hand along the way. When they're good and ready, they will speak to you. This is another teachable moment, actually. This is an opportunity for you to let them know disappointment is a part of life. People will let you down, but I reinforce the fact that it has no impact on their self-worth. It has nothing to do with them and all to do with the other parents. Help them understand the situation, and what will end up happening is you're equipping them to deal with the real world as they get older. Another thing you can do is to equip your child for erratic contact from your parent. Erratic contact is when here today, gone tomorrow. You don't know if they're going to show up today, they're going to show up tomorrow. Your child seeing them is so sporadic, you don't actually know that. The one thing you do know actually is that they're consistently inconsistent. Erratic contact is in the state of longing for the other parent. You can't control the other parent's behavior, and like I said previously, preventing them from seeing their child is not the solution you think it is. Explain to your child that the other parent has personal issues that makes them being consistent, makes it difficult for them. I know it's actually going to be quite painful actually, because what you're doing is you're making excuses for the other parent's bad behaviour, to be honest. But this goes hand in hand with not bad mouthing your parent, and unfortunately you sort of have to highlight the good qualities that parent has. And in turn, what you're doing is you're making that your child feel good about half of themselves. Like I said, as they get older, they will become a lot more balanced view on their own accord. But what you don't want to do is plant the seeds of dislike or hatred at such a young age as well. Also explain to your child that if they want to form a relationship with the other parent, they sort of have to lower their expectations and help them understand what it actually is to be inconsistent. But do this, like I said, without bad mouthing the other parent. And as your child grows older, they will start to understand the importance of expectations. They will grow to value you, the parent who was there consistently for them, and they will realize the difference between you and the parent who they had to lower their expectations for. Also, what you end up doing when you cut off all contact with your other parent is you give the other parent ammunition to weaponize. They can say to the child when the child grows up and longs for them and finds them, they can say to the child, well, your mother, your dad stopped me from seeing you, and that in itself can lead to resentment. Another thing you can do is help your child cultivate healthy relationships. This could be with extended family members, this could be with grandparents, it could be with family, friends, religious communities. Help them understand and recognize people who they can count on, who they can rely on to be there for them. These relationships won't take away the pain of the absent parent, but instead what it does is it helps them identify who they can actually trust, and it will enable your child to form healthy attachments to reliable people. And the final tip for me is, if you're struggling with an unreliable parent, is to seek professional advice. Seek out a family counselor or family mediator, or just someone who is able to help and walk you through what you can or can't, what you should or shouldn't do, shall I say. And there you have it, folks. That's all for this particular episode. As usual, if you enjoyed this episode, you learned something new, or feel like others may benefit from it, please make sure you share it with your friends, share it with your family members, share it with whoever you think will find it beneficial. Share it on social media as well, because you don't know who may need this advice right now. And also make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Your subscription, your interactions, your engagement means a lot to me. And if you have any comments, please make sure you drop them below. Follow me on my personal Instagram page, that's Chris_Topper. You can also follow the official Figuring Out Fatherhood page, that's Figuring Out Fatherhood all one word, _. And as always, I'm going to leave you with what I always leave you with, and that is to make it your mission today to make a decision future you'll be grateful for. Future you'll be grateful for addressing the impacts of an inconsistent parent in your child's life. And if you are that inconsistent parent, future you'll be grateful for embracing consistency and providing that to your child and to your child's parent. So step up to the plate and be the parent your child needs. Until next time, guys.